The following program is a production of UNO Television for KYNE TV. Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Allegiant Health and by Nebraskans for Public Television. Consider This with Carol Schrader, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Lee and Helene Sapp Fieldhouse, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Welcome once again to Consider This. We turned sort of a problem into an opportunity with reconstruction going on in the Milo Bale Student Center. We are here at the Lee and Helene Sapp Fieldhouse, the brand new foyer into it, and well, sports is kind of what brings us to our topic today. Super Bowl this weekend, big gambling weekend in this country. Consider this. A lot of people are in denial that they have an addiction to gambling problem. Maybe our community is in denial that gambling is a problem in our community. My guests here today are going to shed some light on the situation, help you look for some warning signs, and just have all kinds of great information for you and possibly a loved one. Jerry Bauerkamper is the executive director of the Nebraska Council on Compulsive Gambling. Also with us today is Harlan Vogel. He's coordinator of Pathological Gambling Treatment Service for Family Service, a very well-known social service agency in the metropolitan area. And denial is a huge thing, and I mentioned that we might be in denial, all of us collectively. Do you think that's possible? We have gambling; it's here, you know.
Yeah. Let me start out by saying that not only as a community and as a state, we not only see gambling as okay, we actually promote it, like through lotteries, and the World Herald has the point spreads in the newspaper. Those are strictly gambling activity indicators, and so we spend a great deal of time promoting it, seeing it as a positive. We have a lot of pools that are going around the offices. Those are illegal, yet we don't see those as illegal. Those are the kinds of things that we have governors who bet against governors on bowl games. So we see that as positive. We would never say, the governor would never say, well, I'll bet you a drink at the end of this, or we'll pass our cocaine against your cocaine. But we would do that in gambling, because we see that as not only a thing that's okay, a condoned activity, but we see it as a positive for our communities.
Well, tell me where you're coming from on this. Gambling, to me, if I had to vote on it in Nebraska, so let's say casino gambling, I would have voted no. However, I like to gamble. I enjoy it. I've gone across the river. I go to Vegas every year and a half to 2 years, take X number of dollars. So to me, it is a positive in my life, only in the sense that it's a positive form of entertainment for me, because at this point in my life, I don't have a problem. So, you know, where do we get on? It's in this community to stay. I don't think they're going to yank the casinos out anytime soon. I don't think they're going to stop the lottery. It's been real beneficial in making up some revenue. So how should we approach it?
Well, you know, Carol, with family service, the way we like to approach it is that, you know, we're looking at it, you know, gambling is right. You're right, it's here to stay, and all we want to do is help the people that have got problems with gambling. Unfortunately, what we don't look at a whole lot is the person that is a problem gambler. And we've raised the bar up so high, and as far as what we would consider problem gambling. Is it when somebody decides that they want to go over to the casino 3 or 4 nights a week? Is it when they start gambling away a paycheck? Is it when they start missing house payments? You know, these things
Is it when they rob a bank?
Is it when they rob a bank, or is it when they declare bankruptcy? Many times in the mental health field, what we see is that people come in for a problem with depression, anxiety, marital problems, but they very rarely say, well, you know, I've been gambling and maybe my lost revenue is contributing to this. So, you know, many times as a community, we don't see the real problem because there's a lot of shame and a lot of guilt involved with gambling.
Well, I just mentioned to you that on the way in here, I was listening to Dr. Laura on the radio, and a woman called in, and their house is, things basically, money gone down the tube because of gambling. And her response is, he's a gambling bum.
Yeah.
And, you know, ditch him. I don't advocate divorce, but hey, you know, this has just got to happen. Is gambling an addiction? Can it be an addiction?
Well, it's classified in the DSM, which is this psychiatric manual for diagnosis, as an impulse control disorder. In reality, it's an addiction. People get addicted to this process. They get addicted through getting rewards from winning. They get addicted from getting rewards from having the world focus on down and their problems go away while they're in front of a slot machine. While they're watching the football game and they have money on it, the world goes away for them. And they can focus down. And what happens is they spend a lot of time, increasing amounts of time, getting it in that kind of a mood to the point where they let the rest of their life tumble down around them, including their family and their work and their finances. And they'll call us with huge financial debt and ask us, how did I get here? Because they don't even see the road they're on because it's just so impulsive for them.
Carol, one thing I'd like to add to that is what you just said about the view that he's a gambling bum, get rid of him. That's an oversimplistic societal view. You know, gamblers are the guys named Roscoe that are out in Vegas, or they bet horses or something like that. You know, the carpenter in Omaha, the bricklayer, the doctor, you know, they don't have gambling problems. It's just, you know, the bums that have gambling problems. And that's an old-time societal view of gamblers.
Is it, until I met my first gambling addicts, and they were people I worked with, I always thought, and sports betting, a sports bettor was the first one I remember. It wasn't even casinos or anything, although that added to it later on. I did not believe, I just thought, you know, he went a little overboard because he's a sports fanatic, always was a sports fanatic. I didn't really realize myself, and I was around this person very much at the time, that he was an addict until we couldn't get our work done, and we, you know, and then I heard there were family problems. But I really didn't, you know, for years, I mean years, I didn't think that there was a gambling addict in the making.
And many times what we see is that type of an example, because it can take years for the gambling to go from just a pastime to an obsessive compulsive behavior, to an addictive type behavior.
Or it can take less than that, I bet.
Oh, it can take, you know, it can be, when clients come into family service for treatment, they range from having gambled from 6 months to up, you know, like you were saying, for years. And when they, what we do is we look at that and we say, okay, what type of gambling are we looking at? And the people where it takes longer, they're usually the harder people to work with, because the gambling behavior is more embedded in their logic, in their belief system.
They can't remember doing other things.
Exactly.
They can't living a different way.
It becomes their central focus. And
so it's pretty insidious.
It's what we call seductive in nature.
Oh, it is seductive. I mean, I'll admit that the sound of those one-armed bandits is kind of an adrenaline. There's a whole atmosphere around there that just really gets your brain going.
Sure.
The seductiveness includes the people around the gambler. You probably hear a lot about the people who win, and we promote a lot about the people who win. Unfortunately, and even the gambler talks about how they win, so you just naturally assume, yeah, they gamble a lot, you know, but they win too, and that's okay, and so therefore they must be okay. And they don't give you when they walked out of the casino, or when the Jets didn't cover, they don't say, well, you know, the Jets didn't cover by 0.5 point and I just lost my house payment. They don't give that to you. So by the time we as a society figure out they got a gambling problem, they're already pretty far down the financial, emotional, and psychological road, and to a point where they're really devastated, very depressed, and many, many times suicidal.
Suicidal. I heard you talking about before the show that you have a gambling hotline, and evidently it appeared on TV or radio or somewhere, and the phones start ringing, and there was a young man. Yeah,
we had last night, or 2 nights ago, we had a young man, 19 years old, got into gambling in school, got himself in a lot of trouble. He didn't go to college, gambled that away. Now he's in trouble with the bookies, and he called up, and his first question was, do a lot of people commit suicide? Well, on first glance, that's kind of a, well, yeah, they all do. A lot of people do, except for this kid was asking for help. We spent a great deal of time on the phone with a 19-year-old kid who's never been to a casino, whose parents don't even know he gambles, who's in trouble with the bookies at 19. And that's, you know, that's the tragedy of having an entire community, a country that believes that gambling is okay. We tend not to look at how it's becoming pervasive, even in our schools.
Well, how, in the schools?
Absolutely. The average gambler who starts gambling and sports bettor starts at age 10. And that's before cigarettes, it's before alcohol, it's before sex.
I've been given the wrong talks at home.
Yeah, and what, you know, we find a lot of our gamblers are gambling, you know, the lunch money to start. And then they have, you know, my daughter who just graduated high school could tell me who the bookie was in her school. And everyone knew it. I mean, you know, and things like that are so prevalent to those kids that they know now that gambling is a part of their lifestyle.
Well, the gambling, I mean, we've always had people gambling and wagering. I mean, that's
Sure.
that goes back. I mean, the Jewish dreidel is
Sure.
is a gambling device. Can be used as a gambling device.
Native Americans gamble, stick games.
Right. The American Indians, I'm sure, cast a. You can have a fur or a pelt or a.
They have hand game where you guess which one it is and you get the prizes if you guess. There's all kinds of cultures have. Romans gambled.
So when did we move into what you're calling, I suppose, a gambling, where it becomes a cultural norm?
What we look at, Carol, is prior to the advent of the casinos, you know, the blow up of the casinos in our country within the last decade, if somebody wanted to casino gamble, they went to either Las Vegas or to Atlantic City. You know, you didn't just drive across the bridge. So if you're from Omaha, Nebraska, and you took a vacation to Las Vegas, you're there for a week, you knew exactly how much you're going to play with, you came home. It wasn't available otherwise. But now what we're finding out is that with the availability of, with casino gambling across the bridge, there's a lot of people that are, you know, spending their spare time doing that. Their fun money, their fun time, you know, they're going across the bridge. And because it's so available, they start to lose, it starts to lose its newness, and it becomes a common thing to do.
Or its specialness, or a special
Exactly.
occasion, or because that's for me. I mean, I look forward to it. I might go across the river a couple of times a year, and I really look forward to it. I go, this is a fun night out. We'll eat. You know,
Sure.
they have cheap food. Okay, that's part of the seduction. But I mean, it's you know.
You keep your parameters in place, and you keep how you view it in place. But what we see is that a lot, you know, many of my clients, what they've done is exactly with that idea. They'll start with it as it's a special event, and then something will happen. They'll win big. They'll hit a jackpot where they have that adrenaline rush, that emotional impact, and then they'll start thinking, you know, I can do this more often.
Do they have they figured out any physiological things that happen in the brain, or is it strictly a behavior? You know, Pavlov's dog. I get this and I get this thrill, and I do this and I get this thrill, and I do this and I get this thrill.
Sure.
The research is slight in this area. We have a lot of research in a lot of cancer, and we even have a lot in alcohol and drug abuse. We're just now starting to, and we've got some research that tells us that there's a specific allele that is affected, and that
A specific what?
allele, a genetic. It's on your chromosomes. There are alleles. They're just little pieces of the chromosome. So as small as a chromosome,
That's susceptible.
yeah, that will be affected by this, and will change the way dopamine, which is a chemical in the drug, a pleasure drug,
That makes you feel good.
makes you feel good, a way that it's affected, and so that gamblers have virtually a constant 24/7 dopamine high as a result of being involved in this
But
gambling.
they must have to keep triggering it to
Yes.
maintain that
And
that feeling.
And that's where we get into the idea of the increased amount of money spent gambling. Because once
Just like cocaine,
Yeah,
just like
exactly.
methamphetamine.
Absolutely.
once you get hooked on it, you know, your main goal then becomes to get whatever it takes to trigger that. And with the gambling, that's I need money to gamble. So if I'm already spend all my fund money, well, okay, utilities aren't due for 2 weeks, so I grab the utility money thinking I'll win it back and I'll replace it. But when you're a pathological gambler, the object is you no longer have money to pay utilities, you have opportunity to gamble in your hand.
All right.
And if you're a pathological gambler, you can't stop gambling, even though you win.
Okay, we've got these casinos, we've got lottery, we had Keno parlors over here before. You can bet the ponies again in Omaha. I mean, the list is long. The big bad gambling operations, the big bad bookies. Is that what you go around preaching? The big bad people?
No. For 95% of the population, it is not a problem. It will never be a problem, and they will stay within their limits. And the issue here is not how much gambling there is what happens to people who get affected by that. And our goal is to provide opportunity for them to get some help. But they need to know they're out there. They don't even know they're out there. They think they're all alone. They think that everybody gambles like they do, everybody loses like they do. They get more and more isolated in their gambling, and by the time they look up at the rest of the world, they're in tremendous problems.
They're in a box way down here.
And our goal is to let everybody know that, yeah, 95% of the population is not going to have a problem. But that 5% that is, somebody needs to inform them that there's a problem and
Now,
that they can get help.
The help that's available is due in part to their private insurance or let's say the subsidies that come from the gambling industry. Isn't there a certain small percentage that goes in the pot? But from what I understand, that's not enough to cover the bill.
What we're seeing is first of all, you are right. There's a subsidy that comes from the gaming in Nebraska, and Jerry could tell you better what the exact numbers are than I can. But private insurance companies, most of them won't touch gambling. They see
Not
it
at all? I mean,
very rarely. Very rarely.
they'll
will
cover other behavioral...
They'll cover
Right.
other addictions, and I think it's because those other addictions have a proven record. This is destructive, And once again, it gets back to one of your first questions: society's view of gambling. Most insurance companies don't see gambling as anything other than the fact it's an impulse control, and we're not going to pay people
Well,
to
my
get
son
help for
has
impulse
ADD.
control.
That involves impulse control.
But
It's
that-
real non-specific in the brain.
But that's also been proven, that with proper medication and stuff, attention deficit disorder can be addressed. We haven't, so as a society, as a treatment society, we haven't been able to prove yet, that pathological gambling is a detriment to society as a whole.
I think you're going to find that the national impact, the Congress is doing a national impact study. And I think one of the things they're going to say in June when that comes out is gambling is inherently a dangerous activity, much like drinking, much like
But
other
there's
things.
got to be
Tremendous lobbies that'll stop that process.
tremendous lobbies that will shunt it, certainly.
Absolutely. Insurance companies will, gaming industries will, governments will, because they're in the gambling business. So there's a lot of obstacles to get that process to go. Let me give you an example. The state of Nebraska spends about $22 million on substance abuse and mental health. They spend $450,000 on gambling. 10% of the population will have an alcohol drug problem. 5% of the population will have a gambling problem. The difference between 22 million and 450,000 is tremendous. And the reason being, society does not see this as something that is detrimental. They see it as a positive.
Well, the state of Nebraska doesn't sell drinks, but they sell lotto tickets.
Yes, they do. They're in the business. And in order to see this as a problem, they also have to see what they do as a potential liability. And they're not going to do that really easily.
So, on the grand scale, I suppose people like you and others that deal in mental health and that will kind of pound away with their little hammers because they don't have
Sure.
the clout. at this kind of thing, but on an individual basis, in dealing with people in our family or people at work, let's click off some of the warning signs real fast.
Sure. Carol, one of the things I brought with me was one of our brochures. And I
Family
gave you
Service
one.
has a really great brochure on this, so I mean, I'm sure they'd be glad if you called for more information. But
Exactly. And on the inside of it, we've got a list of warning signs. And if it's okay, I'd just like to
just
read
whip
them
through
off.
them.
Compulsive gambler is preoccupied with gambling and ways to get gambling money. They need to gamble with greater amounts of money to attain higher levels of excitement. They fail in attempts to cut back or stop gambling. They're easily aggravated when attempting to cut back or stop gambling. It's a withdrawal process. They needs to gamble in order to escape their problems. They lie to cover up gambling activities. Lying and manipulation, loss of trust, huge family problem. Many commit forgery, fraud, theft, or embezzlement to get gambling money. They risk loss of job, education, or relationships, and they rely on others or continuing gambling to get out of debt. And that's what we call bailouts. And when somebody's in the middle of a pathological gambling binge, one of the things they're looking for is that continual bailout. I've got consequences, I've got problems, I've got money problems. All I need is one more big win to make my life right. But I don't have the money to do it.
It's
Who
like
can I
kiting
go
checks, but you can only
Exactly.
you can only do it so long.
The difference with gambling than, let's say, alcohol, no one sees alcohol as the answer to alcoholism. But gamblers see gambling as the answer to their debt caused by gambling. And so they see the only answer is to gamble more. And not, you know,
And they participate in the very thing that got them in trouble to get them out.
they're one win away from not needing help.
Oh yeah, I
So-
mean they're sure that the next one's the sure thing.
Sure.
But nobody that has an alcohol problem says, I'm one drink away from being cured of alcoholism. They don't say that. That's the difference here. We have an impulse disorder. They've narrowed their focus down to nothing but gambling.
Now you mentioned the younger end of the age spectrum that's getting involved, and we hear that, like the NCAA here, we're on an athletic arena here, NCAA teams play here, that they are looking at that. Do you believe some of those groups are going to look at it seriously? They have looked at drugs somewhat seriously?
Well, they are starting to take a look at that. I mean, they have to, like the Northwestern points shaving scandal. I mean, that puts center focus on gambling. And one of the things that happen around gambling is when you have something that's wagered by an entire nation, like basketball or football, to have someone gambling and shaving their own points really upsets the gamblers. And so they really don't, even gamblers don't want gambling with athletes, because then...
So really nobody does. So at least you've got a win situation
right.
there.
Yeah, nobody wants that because it would cause a problem with everybody. So that's one of the things I think they're serious about addressing.
What about the other end of the age spectrum? I understand that
the
we have
elderly.
created the beginnings of I mean, getting old and being on a fixed income and maybe losing your health are the things that, as a baby boomer, we're not looking forward to. But I understand that addiction to gambling is just growing by leaps and bounds in the senior citizens.
What we're seeing with the senior citizens is, you know, there's various causes that, you know, contribute to the gambling behavior. But first of all, isolation, loss of a spouse. One of the big things is that when they go over there and gamble, they get on that bus, they go over there and gamble, they sit at a slot machine. They can be sitting next to somebody that's 20, they can be sitting next to somebody that's 40, and they're equal.
It's probably in some cases the only interaction, intergenerational or just interaction period that they have.
Sure.
So a lot of seniors, it is their entertainment. They have focused, their lives have been work, they've been spouse, they've been family. Now they don't have work, they may not have spouse, and they are treated like royalty.
Oh, that's a
At the
great thing about a
casinos.
casino.
Absolutely, they treat them like gold. And wouldn't you want to go someplace that treated you like gold? And that's just a tremendous draw.
When they're disposable in other places.
That's right. And they're disposable even in their own home. You know, their families don't even want them around sometimes. So this is a good thing for them to go there. The bad side of that, the negative side is they tend to stay there longer than they should. They tend to gamble more than they should.
Or the bus doesn't leave until,
Right.
oh.
So they tend to lose what is a fixed income, and their retirement a lot quicker.
I mean, that to me is the saddest thing. I was
Absolutely.
up at Winnevegas to see a show, and the place was full. I mean, proportionately more
Sure.
than the other casinos of older people, and I thought, sure, some of them were at the nickel machines, but some of them weren't.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of phone calls from seniors on the hotline. The problem is they make that one phone call. They don't really want to go into counseling. They just want somebody to listen to how much pain they're in. But they're not traditional counselor goers.
Well, they don't come from the age we do when everybody's been to a therapist once,
Right,
and
sure.
I mean, they come from.
Yeah,
You gotta-
fix thyself.
They're from a take care of yourself mentality.
Buckle up.
Yeah, and it's really, gambling is really, when pathological gambling happens, it's really a shame-based problem. And when you're 75, 80 years old, you're on a fixed income, and you've been proud all your life, and now you've got this problem, that shame really keeps you from reaching out.
How do you tell your children, I have a gambling problem? They're supposed to look up to you, not you go look up to them. I mean, it's a whole mentality that just makes seniors so vulnerable to not seeking help and actually either committing suicide or dying of all the other things that go along with not having money.
Not taking their drugs when
Right.
they need, et cetera. Okay, we've only
Poor
got a couple of
nutrition.
minutes. Oh, that's eating? I mean, it's really, I mean, we can go a few days without food, but they get dehydrated. I mean, the
Yeah,
list goes on
absolutely.
and on.
It's very painful.
Very sad. What if we have a couple of minutes? If assuming that you can't shut down the casinos or whatever right now, I mean, what do you think that we need to know, in your opinion, needs to be done in the next 5 minutes, in the next year, in the next 5 years?
Initially, I'd say pay attention to the warning signs of family members and friends. Don't be afraid to talk to them about it. If nothing else, if you think somebody's got a problem, call our agency. We'll be glad to mail out brochures. We'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. And, we'll even set up evaluations. Our agency, we do evaluations at no charge for people that have got gambling problems.
Is it easier to turn around before, the house is on the line
Absolutely.
and everything, the family's on the line?
Absolutely, because many times with gambling, the consequences are so long-ranging, so huge, that the gambler concentrates more on the consequences than on getting better.
You're saying one-on-one, look at those warning signs, the best thing that could happen. What about
Absolutely.
you?
The future, we have to do some preventative activities. What are the odds? People don't know you have a better odds of the entire world getting hit by a meteorite than they do of winning the lottery. They don't know that 98% return on slot machines means you lose every time. They don't understand that. And we need to do some education on that.
Hotline, real quick.
1-800-560-2126. 24 hours, 7 days a week.
And I'm sure people can find that in their phone book, or
Absolutely.
information is more than willing
Throughout
equipped
the
to give it
state.
to them. Thank you very much. I want to thank Jerry Bauerkemper and Harlan Vogel for being with us today. Have a good, safe Super Bowl Sunday, and hold on to your money.
Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Allegiant Health.